We could talk about masks on airplanes. That'd be something new.
So from episode 280, you haven't been listening, I guess. You're listening to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a travel podcast with hosts Stephen Seagraves, Fosma Moon, and Seth Miller. Hello, and welcome to episode 303 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I'm Stephen Seagraves, joined by Seth Miller and Fosma Moon, and special guest today, Ed Pizza of both the Pizza in Motion blog and the Miles to Go podcast. How you doing, Ed?
Hey, it's good to be back, and as usual, I have absolutely no faith that this is episode 303.
No, it's episode 300, just for you.
Special edition.
Awesome.
300, double asterisk.
Thanks for having me back, guys.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, we haven't had you on the show in quite a while, actually.
I know.
Is that our fault or yours?
I'm going to go with you guys, but I mean, you did fair. You did ask me a couple weeks ago, and it was like, it was plenty of notice. It was like 45 minutes before you were going to record.
Yeah, completely reasonable.
That's not plenty?
It's not like you were out on a boat that you had to get back into harbor from.
To be fair, we usually tell Foz about 45 minutes before we're going to record, right?
And sometimes he shows up. It's cool.
Well, yeah, but if you tell him that far ahead of time, does that mean that he changes pants before he takes them off, or how's that work?
These are life's great mysteries. You may never know the answer to that.
if wishing made it so.
Foz actually brought the first topic we're going to talk about to my attention and Seth's attention. Hemispheres magazine is going print straight to the homes of its elite members. For those who don't know, Hemispheres is the magazine that United publishes and puts on their airplanes. Foz, what? It's still it was like a vague text message that you sent.
I'm still in shock myself. Apparently, clearly the magazine has not been getting the circulation as it normally would, given the far few number of flights and passengers. And in their infinite wisdom, they've decided to send them to, I think it was Platinum and above. So Platinum, 1K, and Globals will start getting Hemispheres in their mailbox.
Are they
you guys excited?
No,
not really.
So is it on planes now? Given the COVID crisis and keeping it clean, are they even loading it on planes?
I don't think so.
Right.
So they're basically looking for how to get rid of these things.
All right. So not just to disagree with Foz, though that is fun. I don't frequently read it on the plane because I have a million things that I need to get done, for whatever. I think I'd actually read it. I'm not gonna buy anything out of it, but I mean the whatever that segment is that they do 3 days in wherever.
3 perfect days.
3 perfect days. Yeah, I don't mind those when I have time to read them.
Isn't that the ultimate taunt at this point, though? You can't go anywhere, but we'll show you 3 perfect days.
Well, maybe it'll be 3 perfect days in your living room.
Yeah, that's right. 3 perfect days of Disney Plus and Netflix.
So that's 1 month. What about next month? The kitchen? The outdoors?
There'll be gardening tips.
That's what it's going to become. It's going to be, garden and gun for the frequent flyer. Oh, man. I mean, I probably would read it just because it gives me something new to do, but I'm not super enthused. Again, Ed, I'm kind of like you on the airplane. I hardly ever even look at it. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. The only time I would ever look at it is to look at food items and maybe the map once in a while. But other than that, it just sits there. So I can't imagine having much appeal. Well,
it's funny because, they had a digital version. They were really pushing the digital version.
Do.
Yeah, of Hemisphere. Yeah, they really push it. And you can read it on your iPad. And I probably read 3 printings of it, I guess, issues, and then just never downloaded it again in my life.
So a couple things to consider. I got the press release that they sent out when it happened. The link they included for those who don't receive it at the at-home edition who want to conveniently read it online is not just hemispheresmag.com or hemimag.com, whatever the actual short link is. It's some ridiculous link to Inc. magazine, which is the publisher. They also are considering it a preeminent travel magazine, Inflight or otherwise, that United flyers know and love. We should think of it as a coffee table magazine, something top-tier Mileage Plus members would be proud to display. For whom I'm not sure, because hopefully you're not having random people come over to your house and hang out. The August issue will feature the airline's first message from Scott Kirby as CEO to Hemisphere's readers. In his letter, he addresses the changing times of the airline industry and highlights the great work United is doing each day to protect our employees and customers.
So that's a nice way of saying it's going to be a photo of him giving us the middle finger.
In addition, the 3 Perfect Days covers Montana. We also have a photo essay of the U.S. and Hemi Q&A, which boasts always insightful interviews with the biggest names in entertainment. This issue features Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Now, will they showcase all the routes they've dropped on the map?
Or the 25 new ones that they think they're putting back, except then they announced a bunch of others that they're cutting. They put out a press release last week, midweek, saying we're adding all these new routes and bringing a bunch of stuff back. And then over the weekend cut like 20%, I think, ish of September traffic volume. Like, it's obviously you only put out the press release for the good news, but not the bad news. And I get it. But yeah.
Well, you've also got, if you think about hemispheres for just a second, and you talk about, Foz, you said, look at the map periodically. Certainly you're not going to open up Hemispheres magazine when it shows up in your mailbox to look at what snacks are serving on board. So there's probably, 7 to 10 useful pages in the magazine. So,
maybe they can tell you what snacks I have in the kitchen.
Right? That would be very good.
That would be really helpful, because my office is 2 floors away. That's a lot of stairs. If you know what's available.
I'd like to know what my options are before I go down there.
You know what I will say that I think this tells us, and this is my putting my nerdy business hat on for just a second. I've always heard that the magazines themselves cover their costs in terms of the weight on airplanes and the printing and all that stuff. As you guys know, it's really expensive to ship a magazine. It's why a lot of periodicals have gone away. So they must really have been at some sort of close to break even or profitable proposition before this started, enough so that they saw a drop off in people looking at those the best orthodontist in the world pages or best plastic surgeons or whatever, and got enough referrals from that stuff that those people were willing to sign up again.
I still think that It's Just Lunch or whatever the dating ads
right.
are is amazing to me that those still exist.
Those are going to be a little thin right now.
It's just a socially distanced lunch.
It's just Zoom.
It's just a Zoom. Oh God!
There's our episode title.
I was going to say we have our episode title.
So, just over the weekend, United reduced its September planned monthly schedule by 53%. It's now planning to operate 43% year over year. It's a huge level of cuts.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's based on some data from Fly Data Guy, who's been pretty good at this, former network planner for a very large airline that's not one of the big three. But
who we've talked about having on the show, right?
I don't know, but I can certainly reach out to him. Anyway, American has also cut a bunch, actually, but it's
which is different for them.
More.
Because American was expanding where United was pulling back.
Well, American actually cut more seats for the month of September than United did, but also American was bigger to begin with. So their cut was actually a smaller percentage, but more total seats sort of for the month. And American is still expanding month over month. So is United, right? United is still going to fly more in September than it did in August, or it will in August, but it's just not quite as much.
One of the big differences, United's been adding a lot of international. American is not.
Yes, and neither of them is entirely certain they're really going to operate, but
they've got United is already running more international than American, and they're starting new flights tomorrow. August 3rd is the next batch.
Well, yeah, and I think there, United as a whole had more, bread and butter profitable international routes than American did.
Right. You don't think AA was making money in their China routes?
Yeah, the magazines and the seat packs.
A lot of Inflight duty-free sales.
Yeah, there's a question. Could they start selling us duty-free?
You just want Sky Mall, don't you?
Yeah, I want it back, baby.
See, Sky Mall they could sell you. Duty-free, not so much.
Well, I can't even go to the Canadian border right now, so,
Or you can go. You
go to the border, you just can't cross it.
Wait, yeah.
Which raises an interesting question, right? The duty-free shops on the borders are on the U.S. side. If you buy your duty-free, go into Canada, get refused entry, can you bring the stuff back?
I would imagine they have to be closed right now, though, just because the border is closed.
The border is open for essential traffic and truckers, so the border is physically open.
Yeah, but I can't imagine there's enough traffic.
You think truckers are picking up cases of beer on the way?
Oh, you're referring to the
cigarettes
shop. Well, they probably are picking up cigarettes, quite honestly.
Yeah, we used to always. I have family up in Canada, and that was we were always ordered to pick up the maximum number of smokes at the border.
We love you. Could you pick up those marbles for us?
Yeah.
If you would still like to sleep on the couch this summer, please, to be providing us. I actually think it's completely reasonable. I crashed on someone's house on the couch of someone's apartment in Stockholm many years ago now, last time I was visiting, and it's on the way in, I was yeah, let me know what you want from duty free. And because it's a very specific set of choices and whatever that they offer on arrival. It was duty free on arrival. It was Stockholm or Oslo, I don't remember. But he knew exactly what he wanted. He sent me the thing. I found it, picked it up. He's can I pay for them? I'm no, you're letting me sleep on the couch. That's the trade. And it was a couple bottles of wine. It was like, cost me probably $40 or $50 in duty free, but given the price of hotels in Scandinavia, I figured that was a very good deal.
Yeah, it is a deal.
Too bad this isn't a video show because we could all everybody raise your hand who's surprised by Seth's story of paying for a couch in some random place using duty-free cigarettes.
For a guy who I knew from text message groups but had never met in person.
Right.
Seems about right.
It's completely reasonable.
Yeah. Well, it's very on brand, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Definition of reasonable might have to shift. Fair.
So, Seth, you're talking about more schedule cuts. Has Delta done anything recently as far as schedule cuts, or is it just mostly American and United?
Delta's cuts were smaller, similar from Frontier, Allegiant, and Sun Country, and Southwest even actually trimmed some of September, which is considered abnormal because they don't usually trim as close in. Southwest has interesting aircraft routing challenges, right? Because they don't have hubs.
Yeah, we talked about that a couple of shows ago. Yeah, they can't move the planes. Yeah, they can't move the planes around like they need to. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's harder for them to cut, and even with those challenges, they still are. So. Literally 24% of the domestic U.S. schedule dropped over the weekend.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And you got to wonder, I know they can add stuff short term. I don't see a lot of that getting added back.
I was going to say you got to wonder how many of those flights are still going to operate. I was going the other direction. There's still day of travel cancellations.
Yeah. No,
JetBlue in their earnings, JetBlue in their earnings call the other day, Scott Lawrence, who's their VP airline operations or something like that, basically said, we publish a schedule. And then he used the word scrub, which is an interesting phrase. We scrub the data a few weeks out and then again a few days out. And so, within a week of travel, they'll look, and if sufficiently low numbers of people are booked on flights that they have multiple daily services, they'll see if they can consolidate down, call or just tell people there's been a flight change. And we're canceling the 2 o'clock, you're on the 4 o'clock now, kind of thing.
I wonder how that lines up with minimum hours and stuff for pilots.
Pay them anyways?
I guess, yeah. And I was just wondering, because that seems to be part of the scheduling challenge. If you have pilots with minimum hours, I guess you just pay them cash and they don't fly, which is
it's easy because you're paying them U.S. government money.
True. Right, for now.
Really U.S. taxpayer money.
Fair.
Yeah.
But we've already given it to the government. Well, have we, though?
Not really.
Dead, so we haven't actually given it.
2024, yeah. 4 years from now, we'll give it to the government.
You think it'll be that soon?
When you think about September, I, nerding out a bit, you guys seen the site rt.live?
No.
It calculates the R0 number. So it's the number of our cases growing by state. So essentially if your number is over 1, then COVID is growing in your state. If it's below 1, you're shrinking. And so usually these results are indicative of what's going to be happening, call it 2 to 3 weeks from now, just based on spread patterns. But right now, fully 31 of the 50 states have a positive number, meaning cases are growing, which means they should continue to grow for the next 2 weeks. And another 6 or 7 are right on the line, 0.98, within the margin of error. So call it 75% of the country is growing cases right now, and that's gotta ice business travel for the foreseeable future. It's really I wouldn't call it essential travel. It's essential and then some level of leisure, but I don't see any business travel coming back with the numbers growing that much.
The one question that I have is, a lot of airlines have been pushing a number of their routes to the IATA winter season. How many of those flights will actually take off come out October 24th?
Well, and I think, too, hasn't IATA kind of said that there's no recovery in sight until at least 2024?
I think it's going to take us back to normal, yeah.
Yeah, they're saying we should hit 2019 passenger volume numbers by 2024. They announced that last Tuesday, I want to say. And that was a revised estimate a year later from what they had been anticipating for the last few months. So it's getting worse, not better.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And a lot of that is attributed to international traffic. Right? Domestic is it's a challenging one, where the virus has been contained, and that's basically New Zealand, and to a lesser extent China.
Allegedly.
Maybe not a lesser extent, but to an extent also China. New Zealand has seen a return of domestic traffic that was very solid. They had trans-Tasman traffic to Australia, and then Australia flared up again, so they cut all that shit down. But they're actually even seeing business travel rebound, according to company executives. So, right, there is a return to traffic, but you got to get to zero, literally zero. Anything other than that, and you start having Georgia summer camp where 48% of the kids all have COVID the next morning, and oh shit, what do you do now?
Yeah.
And the 48% might be a made up number, but it was close.
So do you think that date will get pushed by IATA? It'll be 2025 in the next week?
Depends. Not in the next week. When we started talking about this months ago, my comment was always, for every month longer it takes to get shit under control, it's another year of recovery. And it took yet another month for the U.S. to, the U.S. has pushed another month of still being moronic jackasses, and so now the target date moved out another year. I don't know. Until someone tries to actually figure this stuff out, it tries to actually address it rather than just hope it goes away. We're screwed. So, the looking at the scheduled traffic, October, November, December schedules FOS have not been really updated yet. They're still spectacularly bullish. November, December for 2020 actually are showing higher numbers than 2019 yet because they just haven't bothered to pull the flights out. So it's coming, but hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, no, I realize that it's all conjecture at this point, but it is funny how much stuff there. Right now, if you looked at the schedule, it's funny how many routes will be resumed on October 24th.
Yeah.
And what's the reality of that actually? Like, what percentage will actually happen?
There's also the challenge with the sort of seasonal schedule of how many airports have slot controls. And so domestic, it doesn't really matter, right? It's a couple U.S. airports, and it's not a huge deal. And presumably those slots rules will get waived. But internationally, it's less clear. And, they have to fly to London. If they have to fly to Heathrow, if they want to keep the slots, they have to fly to Gatwick if they have, Gatwick slots. A lot of countries, a lot of airports around the world are slot controlled. You got to fly to Frankfurt if you want to keep your slots, right? All of these airports, unless those governments choose to waive the rules, and it's you got to fly 80%. So 6 out of 7 days a week, you got to do it.
And you really think that those airports are going to enforce those rules right now?
It's not the airport, it's the government. So that's, do the airports, the airports know, although they want the money, they understand the bigger picture, they can't force people to fly. I don't think in the end the governments will, but I also don't know when they're going to finally issue a decision. It took a long time for governments to finally agree to waive the summer slot schedules. It took months of asking from the airlines. So. Yeah.
I was wondering about, I think I mentioned it to you guys, my Cathay flight in September from JFK to Hong Kong is now an A350-1000, and you guys told me, the Cathay doesn't fly any 777-300s ERs anymore, really.
Yeah, I think I saw some data that Danny, our friend in Hong Kong, shared, that they have 7 of their fleet of 70 active, and I believe those have all been converted to combo cargo operators, COVID combis, as we call them. They took the seats out and made them all cargo.
Wow.
Delta wants to do that.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit. Are they making any headway?
The U.S. government last week or the week before approved the option to take all the seats out, not just put stuff on seats. So, but it's still, there's, you got to file the paperwork and the FAA has to approve it, and the FAA is moving pretty slowly right now, it seems.
They probably have, they've got the Mac stuff they're still trying to wrap up, right?
I would like to believe it's different people, but sure.
Well, and how many people are actually working at those? How many people at these organizations are considered essential? Is the entire FAA staff considered essential?
I'm not sure. I do know that there's the NTSB has a whole bunch of crashes it hasn't investigated as it normally would have because of the situation, because of the virus.
That's not surprising.
No, it's bad for air safety.
Yeah, absolutely.
NTSB is actually pretty good at what it does.
Seth, Ed sent you a story that I think we're all going to find kind of incredible. What is this?
100 million euros? You got 100 million euros to spare? Can you spot Finnair? They would not mind having that money available because their passengers really wouldn't mind. So the story is that someone came out with the number that the airline owes 100 million euro worth of refunds to its passengers still.
Wow.
And they claim, by the way, this is the part that I find equally amazing, that they claim it's because they don't have enough people to process the refunds. But I mean, I guess at one point they had 370 million in unpaid refunds, and now they're down to 100 million euros. But they claim not to have enough people to do this more quickly. And we're March, April, May, June. We're 5 months in, and they
are they doing it? Are they doing it via Morse code? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Well, so having had a Finnair refund, I can tell you it took forever. But I think part of what's happening is every refund is getting audited.
Why?
Probably
same reason United is, same reason American is.
Yeah, to make sure they don't give away any money they're not supposed to. Right? They are hyper-focused on keeping as much money as they can. And literally, my refund request was Inflight for, I think, almost 4 months. The flight actually got canceled just at the start of all this, and I requested a refund. And between Expedia and Finnair, they just wouldn't. They would submit the refund, it would get rejected for some reason, and literally it would go back and forth, and every time you have to wait 6 to 8 weeks before they'll do it to resubmit it.
But shouldn't this be automated? If your flight's canceled, you're due a refund. Isn't this just something the flag in the computer says, yes, refund due, and you move on?
Yeah,
or
but
am I missing something?
Well, how do you pay for that ticket, right? That's part of it. right? Because they have to trace back where the money came from. Was the money actually collected? Because I think that's part of it too. Sometimes the money doesn't come in. If it was ever disputed or something, they might not have caught it. So I think there's just double and triple checking at this point. And, not that I want to defend the airlines. How big are these refund departments to begin with, right? What's a normal volume for them?
Yeah, but it's not hard to add people. It can't be a terribly complex process to do this. You can add people. I mean, maybe you can't make it a day turnaround, but 5 months. Look, think about it this way. We know the volume of tickets purchased more recently has got to be extremely low. So this is still working off a backlog from quite some time ago.
Yeah.
Agreed.
For what it's worth, $3 billion total revenue in 2019, $3.1 billion. So 10%,
more than 10%.
370, yeah, a little more than 10%.
And it is at least a little bit surprising that Expedia's top-notch customer service wasn't able to solve that for fast.
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me started.
I sense a tone of sarcasm.
Hey, look, I didn't buy the ticket through Expedia. You did, so you started it.
You are absolutely correct, and that's because I couldn't get it to book on the Finnair website. But I've changed my ways, and I try to avoid Expedia and Orbitz and all those bastards, and just try to use Amex Travel at this point because they at least have real agents on the other end of the phone. As
my grandmother would have said many years ago, Foz, you reap what you sow.
Wow, she sounds like a piece of work.
So Ed, you were kind of surprised by just how much money Finnair is bringing in that they have to refund this much. I think we're all surprised that Finnair just doesn't strike us as this massive carrier.
No, and I think in February they had at least, so call it 400 billion in paid bookings going into the COVID period, which I certainly was surprised when Seth just said that they were a $3 billion airline last year. But just thinking about that in terms of advanced bookings, so we break that down. That's call it $300,000 a month in bookings. Roughly $250,000 a month. So they had a full 2 months worth of bookings that essentially if everything canceled. Because I don't think Finnair. And I remember Seth, you put together a spreadsheet with a bunch of other folks. They canceled. They canceled almost everything, right?
Yeah, well, you got to remember their long-haul network was... Yes, they canceled everything, basically. They cut all international service, but their long-haul network is China.
Right. They connect... You're right. They're one of the few... They're this unique airline that can connect the U.S. with Asia if you're crazy enough to go that way.
Well, more to the point, they connect most of continental Europe to Asia much more quickly than hubs in Frankfurt and Paris and London.
For sure.
So... and they've got a bunch of destinations. They've got a few cities in China. They've got Hong Kong. They've got Japan. I think they have Korea too. So, and they were growing there. The airport in Helsinki had added the Chinese payment systems and Chinese signage and speaking language speakers for all the support and everything else. They made it a massive push to pick up all that traffic. And so not only did they have exposure vis-a-vis things being broken, but what was broken was their main operations. So, in some ways, you say they, 400 million on a $3 billion company, you try to amortize it out for the full season. I would say that it's probably much more short-term money than long-term. It actually doesn't seem like as much as it could have been. I wonder how many people they convinced to take vouchers instead of refunds.
Yeah, I wonder. And you said something else that brings up an interesting point. Finnair, being specifically heavily reliant on Asia for their international traffic and having the fleet, the 350 stuff like that. Setting aside the fact that there's obviously going to be significantly reduced demand there just in general. You also have all the stuff in Hong Kong that's reducing demand there. Finnair's got an Asia problem.
Yeah.
What is Finnair's?
Our spreadsheet never tracked Finnair. I don't know why.
What is Finnair's cargo operation like, though?
I don't know.
Like every other airline, not enough to make up for the disaster that's happening.
No, but I'm sure that they have a reasonable cargo operation given their location.
I wonder if they do. I wonder if they bring stuff in from China. Yeah, if they're bringing in manufactured goods. Obviously not right now, but prior, if they were shipping in,
they're actually flying to China right now.
Yeah, but I'm sure it's nowhere near how much they were before.
No, but they're flying more routes than you would think. And
some of those are, as you say, are probably supported by tech that needs to come into the U.S. into Europe.
Yeah. IAG is retiring part of their fleet, right? The BA A318s are going away.
318s, there's just one.
Yeah, it's just one.
How
do you retire a fleet when it's just one flight?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was just one.
I didn't either.
It maxed out at 2, so...
Yeah, it was ever only, to what Seth said, it was 2, and then years ago, when they went from 2 flights a day to 1, they retired one of the birds.
So is the London City JFK route gone forever?
Never say never.
Until something else can do it.
But not on a 318. Yeah.
A220 would come. A220 would come back in a heartbeat. I mean, and they shouldn't have too much trouble getting one of those. Bombardier actually, even before they sold it out to Airbus, demonstrated that the CS100, the smaller version, they fitted it with 40 seats or the equivalent of 40 seats and people worth of weight, and flew it London City to JFK as just because, hypothetically speaking, it seemed like a useful idea at the time.
Well, you think it would still make the stop in Shannon?
I don't think so. Yeah, that's the thing. I think with the increased fuel efficiency of the I was going to say of the Bombardier jet, but that it would be able to make it without the stop in Shannon.
Would they be able to get a pre-clearance facility at London City then?
I can't imagine that would be worthwhile.
But part of the appeal of the City flight was always not having to go through JFK customs.
I think they sold it. They sort of sold that concept as being useful as an excuse for why they had to stop. And I think saving the hour on the ground and just depending on the time it arrives, and depending, if it's now T8 at JFK, that time of day, I don't think it's that crowded. I bet it's not that big a deal.
I would argue the last time I flew into T8 on an international flight, the line wrapped all the way upstairs.
Yeah. What time of day?
Evening.
Right. This is a much earlier flight, but
no, the City flight comes in the evening. It leaves in the afternoon.
Does it? I thought it was earlier. Okay.
No, that was the morning one that they stopped.
Okay, my bad.
So what do, what do you guys think then, like CBP, we talked about pre-clearance yesterday, right? Or last show. Yeah. Would there even be space for this at London City? I don't know.
No, it's not happening. Not going to happen.
It'd be a trailer.
Yeah.
I mean, they're building out London City. They're expanding it, but it's still not going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's not just the 318. I mean, I took it. Did you guys? Did all of you take it?
I never got to take it.
Me neither.
Boz, I'm actually surprised you didn't take it more, given how much you actually just go to London.
You know how expensive that flight is?
Fair point. I guess you always had to. The only time I took it was when I managed to score it with an onward booking to Europe.
Exactly. When you could find a good mistake fare to tie it into, and those are the times that I took it. But between the BA fuel surcharges, it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, that's fair.
And most of the time, I need to be in West London, anyways, rather than East London.
What other fleet retirements are taking place then?
So we had the 747s for BA that we talked about. They've officially grounded 4 A380s and up to 6 777s, and early retirement of 13 A320 family, temporary grounding of another 18. Iberia had the 346s retired, 17 short-haul aircraft grounded and 2 long-haul. Level is actually the really big one in my mind. It's they're getting rid of 5 of their A330s, so they'll only have 2. They're closing Paris. They're going to quote-unquote focus on Barcelona. And then the short-haul Welling is done. Or excuse me, short-haul Level is basically done.
Yeah.
Amsterdam and Vienna hubs are both closing. They're putting the 320s back to Welling. But Welling has grounded 48 aircraft, most of which they expect to return next year, but you never really know. And then Aer Lingus is retiring. They returned 6 wet lease aircraft, including 4 757s, and then a bunch of 320s and 330s are grounded. But they took the 321 Neos, the LRs, so those are still flying.
So here's a question for you. And you mentioned the 380s, and I just looked it up because I was curious. So they retired 6 of them. They actually have 12. Wow. Not retired, but grounded 6 of them. What are they doing with the other 6?
So there are 4 grounded temporarily, officially.
4, yes. So
6 777s.
Yes. What are they doing with the 8 that they're not grounding?
Presumably flying them to like North America or South Africa like they had been in the past, but who the hell knows? They don't have any 747s anymore, so...
Yeah, but what are they?
The 777s are almost big enough.
Yeah, I don't understand. How do you get anywhere near filling that plane right now? Right. So, why not just ground all? I can't imagine. Do they just not have enough other wide bodies of some other type, 777s or 787s or something that they need to fly 8 A380s to fill the schedule?
It might have to do with maintenance cycles, right? If these 380s recently had maintenance cycles and they have 772s or Ws that need maintenance cycles to continue using.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fiscally, it makes more sense to keep the 380s going.
Yeah.
And it might have to do with pilot crews as well.
Pilots, yeah.
That's
the other thing is got to keep the pilots moving. Right. Yeah. That's how we learned that the 747s were going away, is they canceled the pilot training a month before they canceled the flights.
Wow.
So.
Airbus and Boeing production cuts. What is this?
Well, they're not making as many planes as they used to.
What?
Shocking, I know, right?
crazy.
I keep thinking back to a conversation I had with some other journalists in like, I want to say the Paris Air Show in 2017, probably 3 years ago, or London in 2018, maybe. No, I didn't go to that. It was probably Paris. Where it was like, we were talking about the backlogs, because, like at the big air shows, they announced like X hundreds of new plane orders. And you start going through it, and it's like, okay, well, there's now a 3,000 aircraft backlog on the 737 MAX line or whatever. And so you do the math, and you're like, okay, so even if they make 50 a year, or excuse me, 50 a month, that 3,000 is a 5-year backlog. That's a ridiculous number of airplanes. How do they really, how are they ever going to deliver that? And someone's explanation to me was like, no one actually expects all these to be delivered. But they take the orders now, and they take a little bit of money now, and then, eventually some of them cancel, and some of the money goes back, some doesn't, whatever. But, the gist of it is, it's good numbers, but no one really ever expects that many planes to be delivered and flying. Because something is going to come up, right? The airline goes bankrupt, or this or that. And so, hearing that, obviously now all these planes are not going to get delivered makes some sense, and I can't claim to really be surprised. But at the same time, the level to which these production cuts are coming is kind of insane to me. We're talking about 787 scaling back. 747s are done as of 2022, as previously rumored and now confirmed. The 777 customer deliveries are now 2022, not 2021, and it was supposed to be 2020 originally, and maybe even earlier than that, but that's where we were not so long ago. Airbus is also coming back to single aisles. Even when Boeing is ready to resume 737 MAX production, it's going to be at a much slower pace while they deliver the 500-ish that they've got parked already and wait to see what airlines are still in business and still want them.
Right.
Airbus is similarly cutting back. There's a lot of change coming.
Yeah, how long will it take them to deliver 500 airplanes?
They think they can do it in a year if the airlines will take them.
If the airlines will take them. Because I think I saw earlier today or yesterday, recently, that United pushed theirs again to 22 or maybe to 23.
A lot of the airlines are, the big thing now is the airlines saying, we'll only take them if we can find financing. Whereas in the past, they'd be like, oh, we got cash, we'll just buy them.
Never mind.
Yeah, it turns out we don't have cash anymore. I think American... Yeah. No, it doesn't. There's a lot of challenges around financing the planes, but for Boeing, the other interesting thing they floated was they might consolidate 787 production to a single assembly line.
Closing Charleston? Or putting it all in Charleston?
Yeah, right.
They'd have to do Charleston because they can't do the 787s in Renton.
Oh, okay.
Or Everett.
Everett, but yeah. Yeah, the 10 doesn't fit in the building in Everett. But there's also challenges with that move. Some of their contracts include, we will only take deliveries from Everett. Qatar Airways will only take deliveries from Everett that are painted in Portland.
Why?
Yeah.
Because
of that hipster flair, baby.
Because there were build quality problems with Charleston for a while. But I would imagine Qatar would take a discount to get their planes in Charleston.
Of course they would. Akbar's no fool. But, at the same time, right, early on, I remember talking to someone about the Airbus FAL in Mobile. And all the U.S. carriers like, yeah, we're really excited, really supportive of, getting these planes domestically. And privately, we're like, yeah, we're really worried. Because it's a new line, and you just the process of getting them up to speed and making sure the deliveries are perfect is challenging.
Yeah.
But then it's a tax advantage to pick them up, like in the case of Airbus, right? Boeing, it doesn't matter.
Right. There's a tax advantage to taking them locally, unless you're Delta and you just fly it to Toronto back and forth every day for 6 months. Still an amazing thing they did.
So my question is about the 748s. Are they, what's the plan is Air Force One still going to be a 748?
Yes.
And will that come off the line?
Already off the line.
It is.
They're the Roycia planes that are getting reworked.
Oh, so they've already got all of... What are they supposed to have, 2 of them?
2 of them, yeah. The planes are already... They were built a long time ago.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, that's actually someone said those could be the last 2 deliveries, and I asked and never got an answer to how does that work? When they're making the P8 is a 737, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then there's the tanker, which is a 767. When they build those, it's considered delivered from commercial aircraft when they hand it over for the extra fitting that is necessary. So I don't know, presumably Boeing commercial aircraft has delivered the 748s because they're in the hands of the Air Force now, I think. But I don't know if it's or they delivered it to a different part of Boeing that's doing retrofit work. I don't know, but.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why you still see 737s getting delivered even when no one's flying.
Yeah. I have a question then about XJet and Commute Air, because it sounds like XJet is going away, right?
ExpressJet?
ExpressJet. Yeah, I call them XJet. Just because that's the cool name.
Because you're the hipster.
Yeah.
Steven talks in stock ticker symbols. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, ExpressJet, I mean, weren't they at one point, they were going with the moniker XJet at some point?
Yeah,
back when they had
in 2008, when they did their own branded operations, because Continental cut their capacity purchase agreement because there was another massive financial debacle.
Yeah. So are we gonna see ExpressJet come back as like this, like running their own operation carrier?
Independence Air, back again.
No, see, now Independence Air used CRJ-200s, right? These are 145s.
And that was ASA, right? That wasn't.
It was. It was. But I've cried I've cried over the loss of Independence Air for a good decade now.
No, you haven't.
That's right. No, he's Dulles based though.
I am. No, it was great. They were Dulles based, and they dropped. Like I could fly what used to be a $600 flight from Dulles to Westchester County, which is where my family was from at that point, was consistently $600 on United, and then all of a sudden it became $40, and it was like, Jesus, Independence, just double it to $80 so you can stick around. I'm fine at $80.
They flew out of the Z gates, right?
Mostly out of the Z gates. Yeah, back when there was more, because I remember the Concourse used to go in both directions, and then they blew up half of it. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they were great. It was great. They did a little bit out of A though, but yeah, it was. I mean, I'd love this.
The story here, the news here is that United announced that they were consolidating all their 50-seat or their E145 operations to a single operator, and both ExpressJet and Commute Air currently operate the 145s, and United then picked Commute Air, not surprisingly because they're cheaper, but also giving up on sort of the long history of ExpressJet and the much more senior staff, which costs more, but as noted, ExpressJet had a history. They used to be, if not fully owned by, at least significantly owned by Continental back in the day.
They were fully owned, and then they were spun off.
Okay, and then United reinvested in them and owned 49% of them as of this decision. So you got to wonder about the decision where we own 49% of this company, and we're still gonna, and we're their only customer,
and we're gonna throw them,
and we're still gonna shut it down. I mean, I guess at this point, when you can put everything in a one-time special charges on your balance sheet, why not?
Yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, that means the price differential between ExpressJet and Commute Air was more than the 49% they have to write off.
Yeah. And let's assume that there's a long-term value calculation involved of X number of years, right? It's not like today it's going to be that much, but yeah, it's a lot.
Wow. Real quick, I just want to mention to Ed, I before all this COVID stuff was happening, I was flying through Dulles much more frequently.
Appreciate the call to meet up.
But I was connecting, man. Like I had
18 minutes, 18 minutes door to door, dude.
But everyone was like, "Oh, dude, you just got to spend your layover." Because I typically came in at the regional gates, so I could go to they're like, "Oh, you should go to the Turkish lounge." What a nightmare!
Oh, the Turkish lounge is always packed. Always packed. Oh.
Half the time, couldn't find a seat. I just gave up on it.
Yeah.
But there was where is there good to eat in Dulles Airport?
18 minutes away at Ed's house.
Yeah, Ed's house. Yeah, give me a call. I'll get you wings.
To be fair, that was the best meal I had last time I connected through Dulles.
That's true. You did. Yeah, yes, yeah.
That was also 7 years ago now, I think. But
it was a while ago. Yeah, that was a big storm.
Before it inaugural.
Yeah. The food there. Yeah, the food there is pretty bad.
There's Potbelly's.
There's Chipotle. Chipotle's probably the thing I would say that's
Chipotle's an AB, right?
It is. It's right in between AB, so you can take the train, technically go right up the escalator. There is a Five Guys. Which is, that's a big meal before you get on a plane. Although their breakfast sandwiches are, man, you could feel your heart slow down if you throw an extra patty on top of those.
It's Five Guys. There's Five Guys. Yeah, that's a big meal, but it's not Popeyes. So, it's before I get on an airplane, it feels safe.
Yeah, aren't there a few Five Guys? Or is it just one? Isn't there more than one Five Guys?
They got rid of the one that was in A. It got replaced by a Starbucks. No, not Starbucks, a Smashburger. And so, so they redid some stuff in C&D and like more lipstick on a pig than anything else. What is it? Chef George or Chef Jeff's, which is right by where the buses come in. And then there's, there's a couple other, you mentioned the Potbelly, there's a no-name brand sandwich place right at the escalators where you come up and see Charlie that does an okay hamburger, but there's nothing spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, my problem with Dulles was always, if, like you said, hop over to A and get, a sandwich at the top of the stairs at the Chipotle or whatever. But like, especially from CD to get over there, you need an hour round trip to feel comfortable with it. It doesn't really take that long, but like the walk to the temporary terminal to where this train station is for the permanent terminal that's never going to get built. It's just, I don't know. I would always say just find the best of what miserable options you have in your local area, because otherwise You have to walk too far.
It strikes me as funny because, like, for me, this is coming back to like business travel, but like what matters to me is I typically, when I land at an airport, it's not dinner time, and usually my connections are short, hour-ish. So I don't want to really have a sit-down meal. I always want something I can take on the plane with me, and the options everywhere I go seem meh. And I think it's actually like a weak spot in a lot of airports, like offering a to-go type option that is not, disgusting and not going to get me sick and not unhealthy necessarily. So
God, you're so demanding.
I know.
I know some folks that operate airport restaurants, and the reality of it is that I'm 100% in agreement that that's what I want. Mm-hmm. And you and I are the minority. I mean, Seth and Foz are probably similar to us, but the typical once a whatever traveler wants to like sit down somewhere and enjoy something leisurely before they get on the plane, and those restaurants do really, really well.
Yeah, makes sense. So
I just I don't want to, like, as you, like, I don't want to spend that extra time in the airport when I could be doing pretty much
other
anything
things.
else.
Yeah, exactly. Our kind of last topic is RV life. Ed, you took the plunge and rented an RV for a road trip?
More than one now. We're experimenting. The short version is our daughter has dealt with anxiety in some form or fashion for 10 years now, and germs are definitely high on her list. And as she jokingly says with COVID, she's trained her whole life for this moment. So,
oh my gosh!
But she's not comfortable staying in a hotel, and even she'll admit she still wants to travel, and obviously the rest of us do. So this was really. It was really a decision born by, an exigent need. Like we had a trip planned. I thought she'd be okay staying in a hotel. And as we got closer, it was pretty clear she wasn't. And I panicked our son really wanted to go. We were going to go to Hershey Park when they opened. So it was a private, day just for season pass holders. So we figured it'd be quiet enough that we can go. The kids can have fun. He's all in. And she's like, there is NFW. Like, it's not just, that's not happening. It's like, how do you convince one kid to bend for the other? And so we rented a motorhome and didn't hate it, but man, it was so, like a city boy, it was so bad. I did everything wrong that you could possibly do wrong.
How many things did you run over?
That wasn't really the big thing. It was just things that you just don't realize. And there's all these, like with the motorhomes, there's all these weird things. It's like they have these things called bump out or slide outs that make the motorhomes and travel trailers bigger. Like you park it and then you essentially hit a button and it pushes out the walls to make the space bigger. And like you can't open the awning unless the key is in and turned on. But you can't open up the slide outs unless the key is turned off and the emergency brake is on. And so you have to remember none of this is written down. You just start pressing buttons and hoping things open. And you can't run the generator if there's less than a quarter tank of gas, and like just everything that you could possibly learn the hard way. We learned it all the hard way. And Seth, as I was telling you,
including hamburger buns.
Yeah, so this is why we'll probably never rent a motorhome again, and we'll go with the trailer because. Like the motorhome has a connection for electric, it has a connection for fresh water, and then it has like the fun gray water and black water connections for all the other stuff. And then you got like the awning, and you put the blocks up to level it, and you put the jacks down and all this stuff. And then like you just assume because you've never camped before that the store that they have that has groceries will have groceries. So they had Mountain Dew and ice cream, and somehow I had forgotten the hamburger buns for our dinner. And so after we get all unpacked, I have to unplug all the stuff, pack everything back up, take the blocks off, take the jacks off, all that stuff, and throw the family in and like take it back down the country roads in Pennsylvania to go get hamburger buns. And it was just a huge annoyance because we couldn't, it's just a motorhome. So we what we moved to the second time was we had a pickup truck and we pulled the trailer. So like if we forgot something, you park the trailer, you drop the jacks, and then you unhook the pickup truck and you can go to the store to pick up the hamburger buns you forgot. So we quickly learned that there were better ways to do it if you didn't know what you were doing.
I'm just amused by this because a couple of years ago when we did Iceland, Linnea and I rented a van, and it was a minivan with like, they took the back seats out and sort of built a mattress and like threw a mattress on and like, and sort of, it was cool in a way.
In a way.
But if we found out A, it never got dark there, and B, like we'd be like sitting around at like 9:00 and like, well, what are we going to do now? We're not tired yet. And like, well, there's like the first or second night, we're like, well, I mean, like Geyser, the original Geyser is that they're all named for, is like 20 minutes down the road. You want to go? Sure, let's do that. But like had to sort of pack up camp.
Yeah.
And then like it wasn't quite as bad as we didn't have dinner, if we didn't, but we learned pretty quickly, like when you're ready to commit, you can commit. But until then, don't really readjust everything.
Yeah.
I think that's like so we've actually talked about getting like maybe a Class B van, but I think to your point, I think Class B is it's basically the Ford vans that can be out there. So it's like a Coachman. They're not very big. They're like 22 feet long.
It's like a hotel. It's like an airport hotel van converted into a camper.
Okay, so bigger than a Sprinter or whatever.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's about the size of a Sprinter.
Yeah, not much bigger than a Sprinter. Yeah.
Some of them have baths. Like some of them have wet baths, some of them don't. And we've talked about it just because it would be easy to like do a road trip in it. But exactly for the reasons that Ed just mentioned, like that's part of the reason we wouldn't want to do it is because you have to pack everything up. Yeah. Like you have to get everything ready to go again, just to go to the store. And a tow behind, you don't have that problem.
Or tow a car with one of those. That's the way to get
You can, but so you can with the bigger ones. You can't do it with a Class B because the engines aren't big enough. And so even some of the Class Cs that are built on like the light truck frames, you can't tow behind. You sort of have to get to like $100,000 to get to the ones that have enough engine power that you can effectively tow behind. And what we learned, not the hard way, probably like one of the only things we didn't learn the hard way is that once you have, they call them a toad. If you have a toad, you can't put the vehicle in reverse. So you really got to know where you're going and how you're doing it and how you're getting into and out of a gas station without having to use reverse. And so like, there's all these permutations. And, I really thought renting a travel trailer and renting a pickup truck would be harder to drive on the roads. I was in the right-hand lane the whole time, never went above the speed limit, frequently below the speed limit. And it was fine. Like a couple of times the truck went by and there was some breeze and there were some tight spots. And like there were certainly things that we had to learn, but there were a couple of things that I thought were interesting that I learned that I had no idea. First off is it's virtually impossible to rent a pickup truck that you are legally allowed to tow something with. All the main rental car companies that have pickup trucks, almost all of them don't have hitches because they don't want you towing something because they just don't want the risk. Enterprise Truck Rental does have them. They won't let you tow in what's called a half-ton truck, which is like not the smallest of pickup trucks, but the next size up. So then you have to go for a 3/4 ton truck, which is usually not very comfortable. It's like big, it's bulky, and so it's not a very fun ride for long drives, and they're wickedly expensive. And not easy to find. We found them through enterprise truck sales in our area. But then the other thing that's nice about that as an option is like with the motorhomes, you pay for every mile you drive, inexpensively, 35 to 50 cents a mile. You pay for every hour on the generator. Like there's all these expenses. And when you're towing just a travel trailer, you're typically not paying for the miles and stuff like that. And the pickup truck, they don't care, drive it, whatever. They don't charge for miles. So it was a much more affordable option if we were willing to pick up the two pieces. But then you got to get somebody to drive you to the truck rental place, and then you got to drive the truck over to the RV place. And then when you're done, you got to do that whole thing in reverse. It's a bit of a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I was talking with Linnea about this earlier and showed her your comment about the truck and having to get your pizza or the hamburger buns, and we were reminiscing about our Iceland trip. And she's like, "Yeah, but also it's just even not just for rental, but even buying. If you want to buy it outright, it's way cheaper to get the trailer."
It is. Oh my gosh! So I didn't realize this. Like a nice trailer, $20,000. Like a super nice trailer, $30,000. And then you go to Airstream and things get really expensive because you're paying for a name and a shiny outside and stuff like that. But like $30,000 will buy you a 35-foot long trailer, which per perspective will sleep like 10 people. They usually have 2 bathrooms or 1.5, like a true bedroom for one group of people. And then on the other end, usually like some sort of a bunkhouse and then a couple of beds in the middle with a decent sized kitchen. And that's like $30,000 new.
So did you buy a truck? Is that what you're saying?
You also need to pick up trucks. So you can add a little more to that.
Absolutely. No. And so like for us, it was like, we did take the plunge and buy a pickup truck, and mostly because it was just a nerdy math thing. I was paying a weekly rental for a pickup truck was more than the cost of a monthly payment on a new pickup truck, a brand new one. And it was like, well, gosh, like this is silly. If we just camp once a month for the next 6 months, I paid for 6 months of the truck. I don't think the downside is going to be like, I don't think we're going to keep, I don't want to drive a pickup truck for the rest of my life. Maybe I'll change, but I don't, I drive to the Dulles airport and back. So like, I don't need that much truck to get the 18
You're going to switch to like a bigger SUV or something?
No, none of them will really pull what we want. So I think what ultimately ends up happening is I think we'll have the pickup truck while we're in pandemic life. And then I think we'll end up selling it and I'll lose the difference because I bought a quote unquote new truck. I'll lose that spread, the gap of what it's worth, the new car roll off. But on the flip side, like every month that we go camping, I'm at least buying that much of the truck where I would have been handing that to Enterprise. So
would it have been more lucrative to lease it given how cheap leasing is right now?
So the lease programs on these trucks are not great because they're in high, the ones, okay, spoiler alert, surprise, I wanted a truck that was comfortable. So like if you want the entry level pickup trucks, that'll work out. If you want the ones that have like the comfy options, like, leather seats and like, things that are actually comfortable for long drives, those are, they don't get the preferred, it's harder to get the preferred financing, the harder to get leases just because they're in such high demand. They don't really have to give big incentives on those trucks.
What did you actually end up going with? Like what size? Because like I've been looking at like Toyota Tacoma or something, that kind of thing. What did you end up going with?
So we went with a Ford F-150, and the thing that, without getting overly nerdy, though, I'm happy to nerd out with you as much as you want. I learned from a mutual friend of at least some of you folks, I believe, Richard Kerr. He went down this road. He taught me that towing capacity isn't the thing that most folks are going to run into trouble with. It's the payload capacity that you run into trouble. And so the big problem we had finding was a truck that was capable of pulling a trailer at the right weight, stopping it, which is pretty darn important. But then also you could put like a family of 4 in the truck and like some suitcases and maybe a bike or something like that. And so once you add that stuff on, all the trucks that they sell, us Americans that love our toys, they've got chrome running boards and skid plates and these really cool grills on the front, and all that stuff takes away from the payload capacity of the truck. So you buy this big $50,000 truck and you have to take off 300 pounds of gear to make it eligible to pull a trailer. It's like, well, this is really messed up. And I literally, the funny thing is I literally stood in the dealer and we'd found a truck that didn't have running boards that fit all the weight requirements. It's like, well, like I kind of got to have running boards because the wheels are, big enough that my kids aren't going to be able to easily get in the truck. And it's like, well, how do we solve this? Because the running boards are literally like for these trucks, they're hundreds of pounds. I'm like, well, just like, this doesn't make any sense. And the guy's like, oh, wait, here, come here. The sales manager brings me in this back room. I feel like I'm going to get whacked. There's like no lights on. It's dark. There's boxes. I'm like I've been here long enough. You guys are just mad at me. You're going to like bury me in the piles of
We're done with the sales deal. You're done.
Right. And there were metal running boards, but they were like real lightweight stuff that apparently they took off of other trucks because folks who come in and want to buy trucks, but they really want to dress them up, put on custom running boards so they can look badass.
Mm-hmm.
Like the rich people that live in Northern Virginia that want to own a pickup truck that are never actually going to drive it off road.
So they put like the motorized ones on that when you open the door, they slide out and shit like that?
Yeah, all that stuff. Yep. And so they have the cheap ones that they take off the truck so they can put the nice ones on.
From the cheaper trucks. Okay.
Exactly right. And they only weigh like 20 pounds because it's just metal. And I'm like, perfect. He's like, you can have them. Give the install guys $100 to put them on and they're yours. I'm like, this is perfect.
You've got and this guy's like, the manager's got to be like, oh my God, I can't believe we got these things out of the closet.
Right. Exactly right. No, he was thrilled. Like everybody won on that one other than the really bad pizza they gave me while I was buying the truck.
Wow. What an experience.
It's been weird. I mean, you guys know, like, there's no way I would have ever thought I'd buy a pickup truck even 6 months ago, 5 months ago, April. Like, I never even thought I would have. But it's one of those things, you guys, everybody here has bought a new car at some point? So you've been through the whole, like, they bring you to the finance office and they try to sell you all this stuff, extended warranty stuff. This was one of those times where it was fun because there just really wasn't a path. It was like, hey, well, like, do you want an extended warranty? And like, well, I'm selling it in 18 months. Oh, okay. Well, did you want a maintenance plan? Like, I'm selling it in 18 months. Like, there was just, it was the quickest, most painless process in the world because they all knew I wasn't keeping the truck. And they were like, well, we really, like, how can we justify selling you anything? Like, they made a half-hearted...
We have no pressure to bear because every answer he's got is like, we would just be assholes here.
Right, exactly right. Yeah. Like, we had a mild conversation about gap insurance, and that was really about it because there was nothing else. It was like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're planning on selling it in 2 years, there really isn't anything that we can add on here.
See, I only buy cars through the Costco program because you deal with the fleet sale, so you don't have to deal with all the finance office and all that crap.
So we bought our last car with the Costco program. I think I bought the last 2 with the Costco program. Love it. These pickup trucks are not part of the Costco program. Yeah.
What is the Costco program?
Oh, dude, it's wonderful.
I'm learning so much about Costco.
It's basically pre-negotiated pricing that Costco has. So you just go on the website, you say what you're looking for, they'll connect you with the dealer, and you'll go to the dealer, they'll show you the predefined pricing, and it's generally cheaper than anything else you'll be able to negotiate.
Can you customize the car?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you pick a car off their lot, and there's a designated price for everything from Costco.
Holy crap, I had no idea.
Yeah, and the other part that most people don't know about the Costco auto program is that there are also dedicated service centers. So if you don't want to, like, I'm more one of those folks who usually either will find a local mechanic or, like, if it's just an oil change, like maybe I'll take it to like a Jiffy Lube or something like that. But Costco also has designated service providers for all the major car manufacturers, and they have dedicated Costco pricing if you go through those those providers in your area. And there's a website, and you can look them up, and it'll tell you everybody in your area who will do alignments or breaks or whatever. And it's all just like dedicated Costco pricing, and it takes all the hassle out of everything.
I'm going to have to, do this now. This is great. Learned something new today.
Do hipster Costco people still buy cars?
Bicycles.
Well, that's not going to help you then.
They've got a fixie program.
Yeah. Protest gear and bicycles. That's all they buy.
I don't think Tesla participates in the Costco program.
I was going to say the Portland Costco auto program is the smallest list in the world because it has the Prius and nothing else.
Wait, there's the Nissan Leaf.
Yeah, sure. Maybe some scooters.
E-bikes. Yeah. Oh man. Oh well, Ed, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you, and we appreciate you. And people can find you. Do you want to tell people where you can find you on Twitter and your other websites?
Yeah, which is also where everybody's going to find you guys when we finally get around to having you all on on Miles to Go, which we have to do at some point in the very near future.
Sounds good.
So yeah, I have Pizza in Motion on all the various social channels. With my last name Pizza, that's the easiest way to find me. And if you actually enjoy these podcast things and have gotten to the end of this one, you probably do. You can find my Miles to Go podcast on all the same places that you can find dots, lines, and destinations.
Yeah,
I'm convinced there's a few people who hate listen to us and don't actually enjoy it.
Oh, I'm convinced it's more than a few.
Thanks.
And to our listeners, you can find us on Twitter at dotslines, morelines.com, and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you, and become a follower and Patreon supporter to get the content early. Thanks for listening, and happy travels at some point in the near future.
Yeah, and if you are one of our Patreon subscribers, you'll get to hear some interesting supersonic conversations coming up shortly.
Happy trails.
To you until we fly again.